Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, title Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 6, title Purusha Sukta Confirmed, Text 11. Avyakta rasa sindhunam cha udaram viditam pumsaha hridayam manasaha padam. Avyaktarasa sindhunam Avyaktarasa sindhunam bhutanam nidhanasya cha bhutanam nidhanasya cha udaram viditam pumso udaram viditam pumso hridayam manasah padam hridayam manasah padam avyaktarasa sindhunam bhutanam nidhanasya cha udaram viditam pumso hridayam manasah padam avyaktarasa sindhunam bhutanam nidhanasya cha udaram viditam pumso hridayam manasah padam. Please repeat. Avyaktarasa sindhunam bhutanam nidhanasya cha udaram viditam pumso hridayam manasah padam. Sa sindhunam Prana garland has to be offered. Udaram viditam pumso. It's already offered. Avyaktarasa sindhunam bhutanam nidhanasya cha udaram viditam pumso hridayam manasah padam. Avyaktarasa sindhunam bhutanam nidhanasya udaram viditam pumso hridayam manasah padam. Matajis? Avyaktarasa sindhunam bhutanam nidhanasya cha udaram viditam pumso hridayam manasah padam. Avyaktarasa sindhunam bhutanam nidhanasya cha udaram viditam pumso hridayam manasah padam. Word to word translations. Avyakta, the impersonal feature. Rasa sindhunam, of the seas and oceans of water. Bhutanam, of those who take birth in the material world. Nidhanasya, of the annihilation. Cha, also. Udaram, his belly. Viditam, is known by the intelligent class of men. Pumsaha, of the great personality. Hridayam, the heart. Manasaha, of the subtle body. Padam, the place. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The impersonal feature of the Lord is the abode of the great oceans, and his belly is the resting place for the materially annihilated living entities. His heart is the abode of the subtle material bodies of the living beings. Thus it is known by the intelligent class of men. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text 17 to 18, it is stated that according to human calculations, one day of Brahma is equal to 1,000 cycles of 4 millenniums, 4,320,000 years. And that the same period is also calculated to be his night. Brahma lives for 100 such years and then dies. A Brahma, who is generally a great devotee of the Lord, attains liberation after such a downfall. The universe is called Brahmanda, or the round football-like domain controlled by a Brahma, is thus annihilated, and thus the inhabitants of a particular planet or of the whole universe are also annihilated. Avyakta, mentioned here in this verse, means the night of Brahma, when partial annihilation takes place, and the living entities of that particular Brahmanda, up to the planets of Brahmaloka, along with the big oceans, etc., all repose in the belly of the Virata Purusha. At the end of a Brahma's night, the creation again takes place, and the living entities reserved within the belly of the Lord are let loose to play their respective parts as if being awakened from a deep slumber. Since the living entities are never destroyed, the annihilation of the material world does not annihilate the existence of the living entities. But until liberation is attained, one has to accept one material body, one after another, again and again. The human life is meant for making a solution to this repeated change of bodies and thereby attaining a place in the spiritual sky where everything is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. In other words, the subtle forms of the living entities rest within the heart of the Supreme Being, and such forms take tangible shape at the time of creation. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shrita Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagarjatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Paditana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Avyakta rasa sindhu nam bhutanam nidhanasya cha udaram viditam pumso hridayam manasaf padam. The impersonal feature of the Lord is the abode of the great oceans, and his belly is the resting place for the materially annihilated living entities. His heart is the abode of the subtle material bodies of the living beings. Thus it is known by the intelligent class of men. So, I first would like to ask the blessings of my seniors here, especially His Grace Bhrigupati Prabhu. I was hoping you could avoid this class, and, but Krishna has other plans. So, so please bless me that I can say something pleasing to all the Vaishnavas, Guru, Srila Prabhupada, and Krishna. Okay, Hare Krishna. So, previously we had discussed how the Virata Rupa, although it is an imaginary form, it is imaginary because it is from that Virata Rupa that so we saw previously how the Supreme Lord, when He creates, right, we referred to the previous verses, when He creates, He assumes a form. Sahasra Shirisha Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapath. That this is stated in Brahma Samhita, and it's stated here also. That the Supreme Lord, Mahavishnu, when He creates all these universes from the pores of His body, He enters into each one of them and He assumes this amazing form. And this form is seen by Brahma, and in this form, Brahma gets the idea of how to perform the creation of this universe. And so here the Virata Purusha is being described. The Purusha Sukta is because we are describing the Purusha here. The Virata Rupa is being described. And in this Virata Rupa, Brahma sees these different things. He sees these different aspects. Now, those of us who come after Brahma, who do not get to see this form, because ultimately Brahma performs a mental sacrifice from the idea that he gets from Vishnu. And in that mental sacrifice, the entire creation is created. Right? And the process of sacrifice, yajna, is also created. This also we saw. And then everybody following Brahma has to perform yajna, because yajna was performed by Brahma. Yajna is the way to worship Vishnu. And in this age of Kali, we perform Sankirtan yajna. Kalim sabhajayanti arya gunagnya sarabhaginaha yatra sankirtanenaiva sarvaswartho bhilabhyate. This is stated in Canto 11, Chapter 5, Text 36. Where it is said that in the age of Kali, intelligent people, sabhajayanti Arya, the civilized people, what do? Gunagnya sarabhaginaha. They are sarabhaginaha. They are able to extract the essence from all the scriptures. Sarabhaginaha. And what do? They worship the age of Kali. Why do they worship the age of Kali? That actually these Aryas, they glorify the age of Kali. That's what it is said. Kalim sabhajayanti Arya. So Jayanti, they say Jai to Kali. They say Jai, Kali Yuga Jai. But why would they say, why would Arya civilized people say Jai to Kali Yuga? Because they are Sarabhaginaha. They know the essence. And what is that essence? Because in Kali Yuga, Yatra Sankirtane Naiva, that in this Kali Yuga, Sankirtan, just by performing Sankirtan, Yatra Sankirtane Naiva, Sarvaswartho bilabhyate, all perfection is achieved. Just by performing Kali Yuga. This is a very wonderful verse that's stated in the Bhagavatam. So, now, going to this particular verse, Brahma is noticing that the impersonal feature of the Lord is the abode of the great oceans, and his belly is the resting place for the materially annihilated living entities. Srila Prabhupada begins the purport by describing the lifespan of Lord Brahma. Right? So Brahma has, 1 day of Brahma is equal to 1,000 cycles of 4 millenniums. So what are the 4 millenniums? You have Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. And the total of this is 4,320,000 years. And how long is Kali Yuga? 432,000 years. So Kali Yuga is one part, Dwapara Yuga becomes two times the length of Kali. Treta Yuga is 3 times the length of Kali, and Satya Yuga is 4 times the length of Kali. If you add it all up, it comes to 10. Okay, so 1 day of Brahma is 10 times Kali Yuga. Sorry. One is 100 times that of Kali Yuga. So what happens is one Chaturyuga, one cycle of 4 millenniums is 10 times Kali Yuga. And Brahma has 1,000 such cycles, therefore it becomes 4,320,000 years. Is that right? 4 billion.
Yeah, one day and night of Brahma is 8,400,000. No, 8.6. Yeah, 8.6.
No, wait. Here, according to the purport, it said 1 day of Lord Brahma is equal to 1,000 cycles of 4 millenniums, which is 4.32 million years.
Yeah, it's 4.32 billion. 1,000 times 4.32 million.
So if Kali Yuga is 4,32,000, anyways, I'm getting some math wrong here. What mistake am I making? Oh, okay. That's the mistake I'm making. Yes, okay. So 4 millenniums is 4.32 million years, and Brahma's day is equal to 1,000 times that. And then 1,000 times, and the same amount is his night. And Brahma lives for 100 such years and dies. Okay. So now, why is Prabhupada saying that Brahma, who is generally a great devotee of the Lord, attains liberation after such a downfall? It's interesting that Prabhupada uses that word downfall there in the purport, because even the position or the post of Brahma is actually it's a fall down. It's not a position that is enjoyed by pure devotees. It is a position that it is a post in the material world, and it is a post. What does Brahma do? Brahma creates this universe for the materially conditioned and living entities who are envious of Krishna to enjoy this universe. The pure devotees want to engage, everyone in Krishna's service. Whereas Brahma's position is he has to perform this service, but he's performing this service to Krishna. However, the service is not very pleasurable, because this is a service in the material world where it's like the demigods. Brahma is one of the demigods, and he's facilitating the material desires of the living entities. And ultimately, a pure devotee realizes that these material desires do not give pleasure to Krishna. The living entities think they get pleasure. So, Brahma's post is also a material post. It is a post of a demigod, just like the president of this country or something like that. It is just a post. So, even though Brahma might be, as Prabhupada says here, Brahma, who is generally a great devotee of Lord, attains liberation after such a downfall. So, Brahma being so close to Krishna, generally, the devotee who is occupying that post attains liberation after attaining that post, which is a downfall. Whether he came up to Brahma, or as it's stated in the 9th canto, the first position that a living entity takes when he comes to the material world is the post of Brahma. So it seems, actually, now remember, we're in this material universe, right? It's funny. Most Brahmas, Prabhupada is using the word generally, is a great devotee of the Lord, attains liberation, meaning that generally the Brahmas the living entities who occupy the post of Brahma, they actually go back home, back to Godhead in the end, most of the time. So generally meaning more than 50%, right? At least you can say more than 50%, probably more close around the 75% mark. We are those living entities who did not attain liberation after being in the post of Brahma, right? And it does look like there's quite a few of us in this material world, because you look at how many living entities are there in this and that. But we are actually a fraction. All the living entities in the material world are a fraction of the living entities in the spiritual world. Among that fraction that actually comes into the material world, only a fraction does not get liberated when we are in the post of Brahma and still are in this material world. So we're really special. That's that enough said. So, okay. Then Prabhupada continues, the universe called Brahmanda, or the round football-like domain controlled by Brahma, is thus annihilated, and the inhabitants of a particular planet of the whole universe are also annihilated. Avyakta mentioned here in this verse means the night of Brahma, when partial annihilation takes place, and the living entities of that particular Brahmanda, up to the planets of Brahmaloka, along with the big oceans, etc., all repose in the belly of the Virata Purusha. So Prabhupada is describing two annihilations here. One is the annihilation of the entire universe, where Prabhupada is saying the universe is thus annihilated, and the inhabitants of a particular planet or the whole universe are also annihilated. So, when Brahma finishes his term of life, then what happens? All the living entities in all the universes are annihilated, right? Because Mahavishnu is breathing back in all the universes, and this is end of the material universe. At this point of time, so Prabhupada, there's two annihilations that are being described. Now Prabhupada is specifically saying that because the Virata Purusha that is being described here is within this particular universe, we are not talking of things that are happening outside this universe. So Prabhupada is saying that the impersonal feature and the belly of the Supreme Lord being described as the resting place of the annihilated living entities does not refer to the annihilation that happens at the end of the lifetime of Brahma, but rather the annihilation that happens at the night of Lord Brahma. At the night of Lord Brahma, when the entire universe is when all the universes together are annihilated, when Mahavishnu breathes back in, where do all the living entities go? They go back into Mahavishnu. They lie in slumber. This is described in Brahma Samhita. Yeah, they attain susupti. There's little difference. The living entities are in susupti. Mahavishnu is in yoga nidra. So the susupti means we are completely ignorant, but Mahavishnu is in yoga nidra. He is also sleeping, but his sleep is different to our sleep. Our sleep is a sleep of ignorance because we are materially conditioned living entities. Just Mahavishnu puts us in susupti and we're just inactive. We don't know what is going on. And whereas Mahavishnu in yoga nidra, he is fully aware of what is going on. So because the Virata Rupa is being described here, this particular description does not refer to Mahavishnu, Karnodaka Sai Vishnu, but it refers to the Virata Purusha that Brahma is getting idea from, how to create. And in this universe, when at the night of Brahma, when all the living entities are annihilated, Brahma doesn't keep the living entities with him. He doesn't have a rest house for the living entities or anything. He doesn't. In fact, this is completely beyond his control. It is beyond his abilities to understand how this all works. And he sees that the living entities are put in susupti. And where are they put? They are put in the belly. Prabhupada writes here, they all repose in the belly of the Virata Purusha. Now, somebody should probably look at if the acharyas are commented, because simultaneously the Virata Purusha is described as imaginary. So, where exactly are the living entities reposing when it is Brahma's night? I don't know. That's something to, I'm curious to know, but maybe if somebody refers to acharyas' commentaries, we may find. But But as of now, we understand here that all and Prabhupada writes here, along with the big oceans, etc., all repose in the belly of the Virata Purusha. At the end of a Brahma's night, the creation again takes place, and the living entities reserved within the belly of the Lord are let loose to play their respective parts as if being awakened from a deep slumber. Now, if the living entities are in deep slumber in the belly of the Virata Purusha, then when they are awakened, how does Brahma become aware that this particular living entity has to get this particular body, this particular living entity has to get that type of a body, and they have to go there, etc. That the next line in this verse answers that. His heart is the abode of the subtle material bodies of the living entities. Meaning, the Supreme Lord, in his heart, he remembers all the living entities' subtle material bodies. What does subtle material body refer to? Mind, intelligence, and ego. And that is where our karma is stored. This is the what you could call as the memory disk of karma. Karma, this is how karma is. The fact that we have karma is reflected in our subtle bodies. And then of course, it is reflected also in our gross body. But once we lose the subtle body, we actually don't have karma. Which is why even those who attain impersonal liberation, even though they don't attain the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, they are free from karma. Because they're free from the subtle body. They're free from mind, intelligence, and false ego. And the living entities are put in deep slumber because if they have the subtle body, they're going to act. You have to perform activity. Karma means what? Action. Karma also means action. So, karma causes us to act. Karma causes us to behave. So, the Supreme Lord, it seems from this verse, that at Brahma's night, what happens is the living entities are actually separated from their material bodies. Can you imagine? We actually somewhat kind of attain some kind of liberated state because we are unaffected by our karma for that period. Right? We go into deep slumber. But Supreme Lord does not awaken real intelligence and real knowledge within our heart because we don't desire that. We don't desire, we don't want it, therefore it is not awakened. And what does he do? Within his heart, he remembers everyone's, subtle bodies. So, Prabhupada continues in this purport, since the living entities are never destroyed, the annihilation of the material world does not annihilate the existence of the living entities, but until liberation is attained, one has to accept one material body after another. This human life is meant for making a solution to this repeated change of bodies, thereby attaining a place in the spiritual sky where everything is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. In other words, the subtle form of the living entities rest within the heart of the Supreme Being, and such forms take tangible shape at the time of creation. So, sarvasya chaham siddhi sannivishto matta smriti jnanam apohanam cha. Supreme Lord is situated within all of our hearts. And actually, it is not us who actually remind us of how to act. It all comes from the Super Soul, Krishna, seeing what karma we have generated, seeing our material desires, combining these two based on our qualification. Krishna reminds us and makes us forget things that are according to our nature, according to the nature that we have acquired. This all comes from Krishna. The living entity does not do this, because the living entity in his pure spiritual form is only meant to serve Krishna. The pure living entity is only meant to serve Krishna. The living entity, in order to enjoy the material world, needs the assistance of the Supreme Lord. Without the assistance of the Supreme Lord, the living entity cannot even make a show of enjoying the material world. We don't enjoy the material world. We think we're enjoying the material world. We actually do not enjoy the material world. But in order to have this false conception of being the enjoyer, the living entity needs the assistance of the Supreme Lord. And that assistance of the Supreme Lord comes in the form of Paramatma. Which is why once we go back to Godhead, the Paramatma is not required. Because the living entity is situated in his dharma. Prabhupada explains that the living entity has a dharma. What is that dharma? That dharma is to serve. But right now, the living entity is thinking, I'm not serving everybody, everybody is serving me. This is false. This is nonsense. Although he thinks like that, Prabhupada describes how actually no, you are actually serving. We are serving. Prabhupada says that the dog is serving the master is serving the dog, the president is serving the citizens of his country, etc., etc. The mother is serving the child, and so on. But in order to create this, in order to facilitate the living entity's unholy desire of wanting to be the enjoyer or imitate Krishna, he requires the assistance of the Super Soul. And Krishna is assisting us in so many ways to fulfill this desire. You just see how complicated this is. Because that which is not natural must be complicated. Right? Like for instance, we're thinking of renovating this building. You have to figure out air conditioning according to code. And it's a complex thing and it costs a lot of money. There's a lot of things involved. You have to have an engineer and just the manufacturing of that part, the air conditioning unit, it's so complex and the maintenance is complex. Anybody can't do it. There's so much involved in this. Why? Because air conditioning is an artificial situation, right? So to create that artificial situation, you have to go through a lot. So Supreme Lord, by reading this Purusha Sukta, what do we get? We see how complex this material world is. And why is all this there? Because of us. That's how much Krishna loves us, actually. He loves us so much that he goes to such lengths to facilitate our desire to hate him. And he doesn't just leave us there. He sends us, he comes in the form of his incarnations. What's that verse in the Bhagavatam? Lila avatara nurato devatiri naradishu. What is that? Bhavatyatesha satvena lokanvai loka bhavana. Lila avatara nurato devatiri naradishu. So, Supreme Lord, he appears, and the Bhagavatam says, he appears in every species of life. Every species of life he takes forms. And that purport, I've always found that to be very amazing. That That means there are so many incarnations of Supreme Lord that we don't even know of. So Krishna comes personally, he comes so much. I mean, even right now, according to Shastra, right? Vedavyas is still there, he's incarnation, he's in Badrikashram. Parashuram is still there. Kapila Muni is there. Who else is there? No, I'm thinking incarnations of the Supreme Lord. Anyways, in the bottom of the material universe, Kurma is, swimming, and Anantashesh is lying on top of him. The pole star, Kshirodaka Sai Vishnu, that's making the whole universe rotate, Dhruvaloka, that's where Krishna is situated, in Shweta Dvipa, he is present. In this way, actually, Krishna is, even right now in the material universe, he is present in so many forms. And mercifully, we can't see any of those forms, so he comes here in the form of the deities. And he's present before us. And he's also present as the Paramatma within our heart. There is every animal, between each of us, there are so many atoms and so much air and so much space, and Paramatma is situated within all of that, and between that, Krishna is everywhere. And then, okay, if that's not enough, he also sends his pure devotees, and they come there's so many of them. He sends without fail so many of these pure, because, okay, you might think, because I'm Supreme Personality Godhead, I'm above the three modes of material nature, you may ignore me, you may think, for Krishna it is possible, Krishna can do like that, but who are we? We are just conditioned living entities. He sends pure devotees who accept apparently conditioned forms, which are actually fully spiritual forms, and they come and execute devotional service, show us the path of devotional service. They are called acharyas because they show by example. By example, they practice, they go through. Why did Srila Prabhupada have to accept a wife and have kids and perform like pharmaceutical business and do all these things? He didn't have to do. Prabhupada even said that. He said, I was happy in Vrindavan. I didn't have to come, but my Guru Maharaj ordered me. Therefore, I have to come. I came, to the West. But Prabhupada was happy in Vrindavan. I mean, pure devotees, they're not coming into this material world like us. We have a need to come to this material world because our false need is we want to enjoy this material universe, forgetting Krishna. But pure devotees do not have any such need. They come here simply out of compassion for us. That's how compassionate Krishna is. And Acharya, then apart from that, there's all these holy places where you can go and bathe, and you can go there, and there's so many ways in which you can get Agyata Sukriti. Krishna comes in the form of prasadam, he comes in the form of the holy name, he comes in the form of books, scriptures are given. So many ways Krishna comes to remind us. But, still we do not wish to be reminded. So, okay, anyways, at the end he was, okay, fine, go to sleep. Susupti. Go to sleep for some time. Enough, let's all take a break. Go sleep for some time. Sometimes, when a child is being too mischievous, the parents just want to put the child to sleep. It's like, okay, just go to sleep. Just go to sleep. Give us some peace for some time. So, it's almost like that. Right? Krishna puts us all to sleep. And just give this nuisance a break. So anyways, that's our situation. And this Purusha Sukta, this chapter, although it can seem very complicated, it's complicated because it shows how complicated we are. Otherwise devotional service is very simple, right? You just have to worship Krishna, you have to love Krishna. Krishna loves us, we have to love him back. And it's an eternal life full of bliss and knowledge, where every word is a song and every step is a dance. But no, we're very complicated. So we need this very complicated material arrangement to facilitate our very complicated material desires. And if we become simple-hearted, we place faith in Guru, Krishna, and the Acharyas, Shastra, then we can simply chant Hare Krishna, perform Sankirtan and go back home, back to Godhead without having to, at least let's not, anyways, understanding how much trouble Krishna takes, let us try to use this as inspiration to pray that we may someday come to a stage where we do not give Krishna so much trouble. We give him so much trouble. We don't love him, We are so heartless, so ruthless, so ungrateful, But Srila Prabhupada, Acharyas, Krishna, very magnanimous. They're very magnanimous. Okay, I'll stop here. Hare Krishna. If there are any questions or comments, please, yes, Prabhu.
Thank you. I'm really glad Krishna didn't fulfill your desire that I didn't show up. This is a great class. Thank you very much. You quoted that verse about how the sages or the demigods worship the age of Kali.
Yeah.
And you said it's from the 11th canto.
Yes.
Does it also appear in the 5th canto? For some reason or is there a similar verse to that in the 5th canto? They see the good qualities of the age of Kali.
See, good qualities of age of Kali?
Yeah, I'm kind of under the impression it's also a verse like that in the 5th canto. The prayers of the residents of Jambudvip in that chapter?
I'm not sure, Prabhu.
Okay.
Yeah. Somebody? Anybody? Okay.
And I know this verse by heart, it's not coming to my mind.
Do you know where it is?
If I know the verse, I can know it.
Anyway, and is the belly of the Virat Rupa, could that be like maybe just a state of consciousness? I mean, you mentioned, where's that, but maybe it's just like a sort of state of consciousness as opposed to, okay.
If I may offer a philosophical speculation, speculation is a speculation. We have to check. But I was thinking it might be Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, who is the bottom of the universe and is always there. Because if pretty much the three forms of Vishnu, the three incarnations of Krishna are all super souls in different on different levels. Meaning, Mahavishnu is super soul for the entire material cosmos, and then you have Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, who is the super soul for the universe, and then Kshirodaka Sai Vishnu, who is super soul. And the Brahma Samhita describes how you have the first prototype, so there's Hiranyagarbha Brahma, who is the prototype of Brahma outside of the material universes. And actually, you have Shambhu. Mahavishnu creates Shambhu. His glance is Shambhu. Undivided glance is Shambhu. And then there is the form of Hiranyagarbha Brahma. And then he takes a form of Vishnu also there. And then it's this Trimurti that then comes into every single universe as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And so, taking that, I thought maybe we could extend it, that if at the end of Brahma's lifetime, all the living entities enter Susupti in Mahavishnu, then during partial annihilation, those living entities that are annihilated might enter Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu as Susupti. This was my, I thought of this, but I wasn't, anyway, since you brought it up, I thought I could say that. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, interesting. And you said it's a philosophical speculation, so it's...
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Hare Krishna. I thought that Brahma Loka, when it comes to the final annihilation,
Which final annihilation?
like not the after the 100 years,
Okay.
that all the resident, and including Brahma, goes back into the spiritual world. I thought it was given that detail. I'm not talking like
All the living entities, including Brahma, goes back to the spiritual world?
just in the Brahma Loka.
Well, yeah, most of the time. It's not a given though. It's not a given. But yes, that is stated that when Brahma goes back to the spiritual world, and when he's a pure devotee, he takes everybody along with him who are there in Brahma Loka. Most of them go. You see, when you read these kind of things, right, you should always understand that there seems to be a standard, more or less in most cases. It is to be understood that the living entities attain the spiritual world only when they're qualified to do so. It is never, and it's not never, but for most of the time, it is not an automatic thing that just happens. It is not a mechanical process. Right?
Yeah.
So there's always that caveat. Is that okay?
And just one of the things he's talking about, like when the soul, at the end of that annihilation again, I thought it goes into the Brahma Jyoti and holds there and then come back out.
Brahmajyoti,
No?
no. Where do you get that from? No,
Oh, I
that's
thought
not true. Brahmajyoti means outside material universe. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. Jitagirish Prabhu. Could you check if there are any comments on the chat?
So Prabhu, I'm just trying to understand. So Yoga Nidra, this is a state of Mahavishnu, correct?
Correct.
What about Garbhodakashaya Vishnu? Is he also ever going to Yoga Nidra?
I'm not sure. It hasn't been described, so I haven't read that anywhere. I mean, he is lying down on the ocean of, on the bottom of the universe. So, maybe. Like I said, the three Vishnus seem to perform some similar functions. Mahavishnu, Garbhodakasaya Vishnu, and Kshirodakasaya Vishnu, of course, in different ways. So, anytime, one thing we know, anytime Krishna goes to sleep, that is Yoga Nidra. Right? Always when Krishna, because it is not, see, the reason why that is described, is given as Yoga Nidra, is because it is a divine state of sleep that Krishna has. Our sleep is influenced by the mode of ignorance. Okay? We sleep because we are influenced by Tamagun. Therefore, you see that devotees like Srila Prabhupada exhibited how they were just above the three modes of material nature, but just not sleeping. Just didn't sleep. So when Krishna sleeps, he's not affected by the mode of ignorance. Our body requires some level of ignorance to actually sustain itself. It cannot function without some level of ignorance. So you need some sleep to keep the body healthy. This is matter. But Krishna's sleep is not like that. He sleeps simply, it's his pastime. He enjoys. There is some enjoyment in sleep. That enjoyment is the divine enjoyment that Krishna experiences. We want to enjoy like that, but actually we don't enjoy. We just put it to mode of ignorance. And that enjoyment is temporary. Every form of enjoyment, there is enjoyment in sleep too. That enjoyment is enjoyed by Krishna and his pastimes in Yoga Nidra. Right?
So Prabhu, the Mahavishnu goes into Yoga Nidra, and then all living entities within the Brahmandas
Yes.
go into Susupti.
Correct.
So Brahma
They
as
enter
well,
they enter his form.
they enter his form.
Yes. When he
Okay.
breathes in the universes, they go in along with him, along with everything.
And so the Virat Rupa, for explanation purposes, is situated within Mahavishnu. The living entities enter
No,
the belly
Virata Rupa is a form that exists within the Brahmandas.
Right.
It was shown to Brahma at the time of creation. Brahma, seeing that form of seeing that form of Krishna, develops the idea of creation. It is a darshan that Brahma gets. He gets that intelligence.
I'm a little confused because it says his belly is the resting place of the living entities. So it's like, this is speaking of when the living entities go back into Mahavishnu, right?
No, that's what I was trying to say, that this particular annihilation is not referring to that.
This is the partial.
It is referring to
annihilation.
partial, and therefore I raise the question that if the Virata Rupa is imaginary, meaning it is meditated upon in that way. So, therefore, where do the living entities actually enter Susupti? Right? That I don't know. I made a philosophical speculation, but actually I don't know. Where do they enter Susupti? When there is partial annihilation. That I don't know.
There's one more small, it's like a yes or no sort of question. So Mahavishnu breathes out and then breathes in. So this is like the births and the deaths of the Brahmas, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, Mahotsav Prabhu. Anything online? No?
Jiva Goswami says, when we take a nap and we wake up, when we go into deep sleep, we wake up, the reason we feel refreshed is because we actually come in touch with the super soul. So similarly, when the living entities go to Susupti and they wake up, they feel refreshed to continue with their material.
Yeah. Another point I've also heard, so we go into deep sleep, we forget everything. When we wake up, who reminds us? Super Soul reminds us. Super Soul reminds, oh, this is who you are, this is what happened yesterday, this is what you got to do, everything, blah, 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 blah. It all comes from Krishna. Because we forgot it.
Gone, that's it.
When we are in deep sleep, I don't know, I don't know anything that's going on. I forgot I am so-and-so person, I'm, so-and-so conditioned living entity, American, whatever, male, female. I don't remember anything.
And I wanted to ask you, so yes, when Mahavishnu goes to sleep, it's Yoga Nidra. The pure devotees also, when they go to sleep, is that also Yoga Nidra? Because their sleep is transcendental. Arjuna is called Gudakesha, means one who conquered sleep. But he also slept in the Mahabharata. It's there.
Definitely pure devotees are not affected by mode of ignorance.
Right.
Have you seen any use of that particular word, Yoga Nidra, with reference to pure devotees?
Like Prabhupada's things are Yoga Maya, I've heard that, but I haven't.
I'm just wondering, before we say that that's the case, we should see if acharyas have used that word, because sometimes certain words are used only in reference to Krishna, even though pure devotees may exhibit similar, things. I don't know. I don't know if I could use that same word. Because I might not, the reason I'm hesitating to use that is because I might not understand the full connotation of what that word means.
Because I've heard that, our dreams are like, Mahamaya, like they're completely...
Sure.
But their dreams are Yoga Maya. But
Yeah.
I don't know if their sleep is Yoga Nidra or not.
Yeah.
So I was asking.
Interesting question. Yeah. Okay, anything else? Yes, Prabhu.
It's you, I guess you were right, yours came. This one says, a short life in the land of Bhartvarsha is preferable to a life achieving Brahmaloka for millions and billions of years, because even if one is elevated to Brahmaloka, he must return to repeated birth and death. Although life in Bhartvarsha in a lower planetary system is very short, one who lives there can elevate himself to full Krishna consciousness and achieve the highest perfection, even in this short life, by fully surrendering unto the lotus feet of the Lord. Thus one attains Vaikuntha Loka, where there is neither anxiety and repeated birth and death in a material body. So I guess that's the one I was thinking of. It's similar, but it's not exactly the same. Yeah.
Jai.
Thank you.
I've always liked that verse because and I've only recently by-hearted it. But that this verse, that the 11th canto verse, is so unique because there's Kali and Sankirtan present in the same verse. It's the only verse, as far as my knowledge goes, in the Bhagavatam where you have Kali Yuga and Sankirtan mentioned. And it's the word Sankirtan carries special significance. We have Hare Nama Eva Kelam, Kalau Nasti Eva Nasti Eva Nasti Eva Gatiranyata. But the word Sankirtan is not there. And we have Nama Sankirtanam Yasya, Sarva Papa Pranashanam, the last verse of the Bhagavatam, and like this. But I liked this verse. Kali Darsani Dera Asti Eko Kirtana Deva Krishnasya. So that's there, Kirtan is there, but Sankirtan carries special significance, Okay. All right. Mataji's, anything? Yes, Mataji. Could somebody give mic?
You mentioned that karma is stored in the subtle bodies. And so is it correct that our psychology and our habits are a product of karma?
Yes, of course.
And so with that, sometimes we'll see devotees, say for instance, they'll go to a psychologist, to deal with certain...
Oh, sorry, what?
They may go to a psychologist to deal with
Devotees
certain traumas.
may go to a psychologist.
There's certain things that
Psychiatrist,
they dealt with.
yeah.
Is that, is it kind of pointless to do that? To
Is
deal
it
with
pointless
those
to
traumas?
do that? Do you not go to a doctor when you're sick? Is sickness not caused because of karma? You have to see what is the need. Just like we go to a doctor, I have a problem, I go to a doctor to get it cured. I mean, definitely we know it is because of karma. But at the same time, we do seek solutions also. So, similarly, one has to see. Sometimes some people may require some medication to keep them little calm. I mean, of course, you chant Hare Krishna, you transcend everything, but practically, we may need a lot of. It's again, it has to be evaluated case by case, because the problem is these psychiatrists, they don't really understand the mind also. This modern psychology mostly just relies on drugs and just dumbing down emotions, dumbing down feelings and things like that, and repression, and so there are a lot of side effects and things like that. So in general, devotees aren't very fond of it, but sometimes within our society we've seen that some people, they've needed it and they should have continued, and they should continue to take some medications that have been prescribed to them, because they need it. But whether those, anyways, that's a big discussion, but I think you get the point. Yeah. Yes.
We know of someone who committed suicide.
Yeah.
One of the main reasons they committed suicide is because they stopped going to the psychiatrist or whatever.
Stop taking the meds.
They stopped taking their meds, and they had like regular appointments with this.
Yeah.
So for some rare cases is needed. Otherwise, the guy kill himself.
Yeah. The expectation is, oh, I'm coming to Krishna consciousness, so I'll be really happy, and I'll, there's again, we're kind of sidetracking here. But the point is, how Krishna conscious are we? And then sometimes we slip. But for normal people, when they slip, it might not be such a dangerous thing. But for for some people with certain, certain types of psychological, issues or something like that, this slip could be quite hard, and that can result in, yes, bro. So that can result in some, in something quite tragic. So it requires some guidance, some intelligence, and some soberness also to deal with these issues. Our society is also learning. Sometimes we've dealt with these things in a rather immature way because we didn't understand these things also. Yes, Prabhu.
Sometimes something goes wrong and you fix it yourself.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Sometimes you got to go to the mechanic.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah,
It's the same thing.
I'll just repeat for those who couldn't hear, saying that just like a vehicle, sometimes it's something small, you can fix it yourself, but sometimes it's something major, you have to go to a mechanic. So it's like that.
Sometimes I have a difficulty with understanding when it comes to Krishna consciousness. Like a lot of times we're said to just like chant and be happy, but then when things do come up that are, like emotional, like standpoints or what have you, that may come from different karmas or different lives, like knowing the balance between like chanting Hare Krishna and being tolerant of it versus when it's something that actually needs to be addressed and worked through,
Generally, the mood is, something can be addressed, it should be addressed, but what should be addressed and what cannot be addressed depends on the difference between endeavor and over-endeavor. Over-endeavor is simply defined as something that pretty much obstructs our progress in Krishna consciousness, because we're spending too much effort, too much time, and over-endeavor is typically characterized by, it's very symptomatic of someone who's trying to take things under control but is failing to accept that things are not under our control. And when you over-endeavor, you're really trying to make it work, but it's just not working. And for instance, sometimes some devotees may have this experience where, you have a particular physical ailment, okay? You have a particular, and you're seeking medical solution. And it's not that we don't seek medical solutions to problems that we have, but sometimes you just can't find out what the problem is. You go one doctor, another, and you just cannot find, and you're suffering and suffering and suffering. Now, you have to draw a line somewhere. Not that, it doesn't even mean that the search has to stop, but one cannot perform endeavor in such an extent that one compromises one's Krishna consciousness. This is the important point. That such same thing with these emotional things. It is not that it should not be dealt with, and this is why we need to consult, and speak with senior devotees, open our hearts, and this. But at the same time, we should not give so much importance to it that we have lost focus on Krishna consciousness, because ultimately we have to understand that whatever endeavor I may do, if I'm not going to get out of the material world, then ultimately everything is in vain, because you're going to suffer the same problems in another body. So the focus always for devotees is to practice Krishna consciousness. Now we have great examples, like devotees like Jayananda Prabhu just didn't care. He didn't care. He had, he tried to get some medical help. He soon realized it wasn't really going to work, and he didn't go around the world trying to find a solution for it. He just accepted it and decided to become fully Krishna conscious and go back home, back to Godhead. In our lives, that stage will come where you just can't fix the body. At that time, we have to rely on our strength of Krishna consciousness. But we cultivate it by always giving importance to Krishna consciousness. So it's not that somebody has some problem. It's like, you say you're hurt about something, your mind is disturbed about something. You're not even supposed to go and talk about it to another devotee. It's like, just shut up and chant Hare Krishna. Why are you talking about all these things? That is not what Rupa Goswami is saying. But at the same time, if all I'm doing is talking and I'm forgetting to chant Hare Krishna, then I've missed the point. So that's the general principle. Details are details, but is that okay? Okay, I'll end my class here. Thank you very much.